Okay, so I wanted to do this week's application a little bit differently than just writing it for a few reasons. The first reason is I keep making my students do more and more Flipgrid videos and over just traditional writing assignments because for some of them it's easier for them to get their words out of their mouths before they put it on paper. And for others, usually my more higher level students, it's actually harder for them to speak than write. So I kind of wanted to take that approach and get a little bit of my own medicine thrown at me in that it's easier for me to write things than it is for me to sit here and talk to myself in an empty room, and I have to take notes beforehand and just make sure I'm on it. So I kind of thought I'd do a better job if I did it this way. That, and I think it would be easier if everyone could see exactly what I was talking to and I could walk through it that way. So here we go. So I decided to go through and kind of review Perspectives for a Diverse America. And just coming in and logging in for the first time, I thought it was so cool. First of all, it's like designed for teachers. You can tell, like it's got all the little trigger buzzwords in there: literacy-based, central text, essential question, differentiated instruction, modular design. I feel like it was kind of designed for the teacher who was skeptical, and so for someone who is very open-minded to this, like the ease of the website was top-notch. So for me, I teach 8th grade language arts, and I love the texts that we read because the students get really into them. But like the big ones that we read are The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton and Flowers for Algernon. We do the traditional October horror unit where we do Telltale Heart and some of Roald Dahl's really, really creepy stories. And in January we do, I don't think the other teachers have decided to do it yet, but a civil rights kind of unit, a little dabble in social justice. But when I think about it in terms of, power and positioning and perspective, first of all, the authors of all of those, for the exception of the I Have a Dream speech, are predominantly white males, or S.E. Hinton, a white female. But the characters in those books are all usually white males or even white females, and there's not a lot of diversity and multicultural aspects in it. And that kind of bothers me now when I have that, put in front of me and just kind of flashing red lights as, hey, how can I add in more? And from a multicultural education perspective, I mean, that's a word that me as a student of college and grad school, I feel like that word gets thrown around a lot. Oh, multicultural education, you want to be a multicultural educator, and I love that, and I try to embrace that. I look around at my students, and I legitimately do not have a majority race in my class, and I love that. But am I representing that in what I'm assigning? And it doesn't really seem like that. And I'm okay with that because I know I can change it, and I can work to improve that. The best part of the site that I saw was the central text analogy, or anthology, let me read right, central text anthology. It excited me. I wanted to figure out how to incorporate this.
Delicia Fields, please come to the front office. Delicia Fields.
Sorry, still at school. I really wanted to figure out how to incorporate this as soon as possible because it made me excited. And I think I really needed that excitement as we approach the end of the first 9 weeks and everything goes back to, benchmark testing. But I'm already like, okay, social studies, they're about to be at the Revolutionary War. What kind of things can I bring in? The Indian Removal Act is like half a standard in Georgia, and it really bothers me that that is the case. I'm going to get to try my hand at video editing because someone knocked on my door and I had to answer them. Anyway, back to the Indian Removal Act is I can already, bring in just different elements in language arts, and that's the beauty of language arts is I can literally pick any text to teach any of my standards. And looking at word choice, like right here, what does the word savage mean? What does savages actually imply? How did the white man's perspective and position and power and all the 3 Ps, how did that come into play in terms of naming that group? So there's even this. And then in January, when I do civil rights, we read the I Have a Dream speech, but it almost feels like to them almost like old hat, like they've read it so many times and they think they understand it that they just feel I don't want to say over it, but done with it. And it would be a really cool way to add in and make it worthwhile, especially with the climate and the events of how our world is turning. It's just to pull from these texts. And so like I feel like I found a gold like mine in this, and I'm excited. What it did remind me of, and what I do every year, is right around the same time that I do civil rights, we kind of talk about the unsung heroes, like who writes history, who literally who writes your history book, what perspective are you seeing it from and hearing it from, and why are these people left out? And so last year I went to Howard Zinn's website, like incredibly awesome. It reminded me a lot of the Teaching Tolerance, because it really points out the big issues that a lot of people are ignoring. And so each student, I gave them a role. So they had to assume the personality of any one of these like hidden people of history that we don't hear a lot about. And I mean, there are the big ones like Rosa Parks and Jackie Robinson, but I took those out because I wanted them to focus on the ones that aren't super highlighted in the textbook. And I also pulled in, like to tie it in with 8th grade Georgia studies, pulled in some of the Georgia heroes or unsung heroes that aren't in the textbook, and I made them figure out, well, why would somebody not want them in there? And they had to do research, and then we kind of did like a speed dating thing where they came to class as that person and talked to other people and had to assume that personality and persona, and it was eye-opening for some of them. And then that opened the door to, okay, this is what we can talk about in class. Let's challenge the norm. And a lot of people, when they think 8th graders, they discount them. Oh no, they can't handle that. That's just too controversial. Well, that's not the case. So I'm excited to have another option to put kind of in my toolbox and bring in. And now that is a goal that is at the forefront of me, for me as a teacher, is how can I make sure the text that my students are reading and the things that we're interacting with in class, how can I make sure that they are representing all of my students in class and not just, the dominant white male. But at the same time, I mean, I value Edgar Allan Poe, and I love The Outsiders for the way it engages them and enjoys them. So I wouldn't necessarily say I feel like I'm wronging them, but I think I just need to step my game up. And I really can't wait to show this to my coworkers. And that's not just like a wolf ticket here. Hey, believe me. No, I really am going to show this. Because, I mean, look at this. Addressed to the Slaves of the United States of America. I've never read this. Like, these things that just interest me. Andrew Jackson's Indian removal message. A lot of times in textbooks he is celebrated and is just revered as, the people's president, or he like called Old Hickory. Now he's actually, in my opinion, like the most evil man in American history because he lied and he stole. And getting students to see that and interact with that, just it kind of surprises them a little bit. So I could probably spend 10 more minutes just like looking at this, and I will. But in terms of multicultural education in my own classroom, one of the biggest things I do want to improve like immediately is what we're reading. Who reads it? Who wrote it? Why are we reading it? Why would I show them this? Because they're going to continue to get the white male dominated language arts or literature as we get older, because that's what's put in anthologies unless they're labeled multicultural literature. So it's just an extra stride I can make to produce students that are critical thinkers and accepting of all other cultures.